Hey everyone, welcome to the Utah Moms for America podcast, where we focus on mothers, neighbors, and friends getting together and talking about the things that matter most. Today, I'm really excited to share with you my guest. He is not showing up right now, but my guest is Representative Trevor Lee. And Trevor is one of the people I've been most looking forward to speaking to because whether you agree with him or not, you've probably heard his name. Trevor is one of the most talked about and often controversial voices in Utah politics right now, depending on who you ask. He's either a principled defender of liberty or a lightning rod for criticism in nearly every legislative session. But here's the problem with how we talk about politics today, especially online. We tend to reduce people to headlines. I know in my classroom, my kids have their opinions based on TikTok. And so what I wanted to do today was invite him on and to just let him talk about some of the policies that he tried to push forward and why he stands for the things he does. So I hope that you will enjoy this conversation. Trevor is somebody that I actually admire. So I hope you will get to see a little more human of him. So welcome, Trevor.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate you being here.
So let's just talk about the legislative session. I was actually on a call with a group of people who are going to be doing a documentary on social and emotional learning. And so I think that would be a great place to start that policy. Why did you bring it forth?
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of the things I commonly hear from teachers around our state is that they are given too much responsibility, too many things to do. And it's gone beyond just their original scope of work, which was math, reading, science, the basics that so many of our children are becoming less proficient at across the board. In fact, almost in every metric out there, we are declining across this country. This isn't, just a Utah problem, it's everywhere. And it directly correlates with the decline in proficiency with the tools of social emotional learning that have been infused into our school system across the board. And it's getting so bad now that we have a lot of I would call them worldwide organizations that are trying to implement it, not just on the basis of making teachers teach that stuff, but starting to look at grading based on your social, emotional, and learning skills. And they're saying it's coming from the universities and the workforce that are claiming that most of these children and young adults, when they get into that world, are not ready for it. And because they're not ready for it, they want to start putting that element on the schools to teach these things. And then they're saying, well, you know what? If we're teaching these things and it's become so integrated into our system, maybe we should start grading them on these aspects. Now, that's a scary place to go because you could have someone, specifically a child, who's very smart, let's say in math or reading, but maybe they went on a vacation for a while because they're just excited at school and their parents decided to do that with them. Well, now, based on stuff like that, they will be graded on things other than just their schoolwork. And that is a scary road to go down because how do you, for example, grade a child on like their leadership capabilities? How do you grade a child on resilience? How do you grade a child on anything other than something that is really easy to actually grade, like we always have for the history of education? And so we start going down a path of also, for example, what is the person doing the grading and how are they looking at it being a good or bad thing? So, what if a teacher tells a student like, "Oh, you know what? You're actually a follower. You're not supposed to be a leader." Well, who are they to say that? And so that is where I ran and had the bill HB 399 this last session, which was to try to get in there and get rid of character education grading. SEL is so infused, I almost think it would be impossible to eliminate it completely from our schools now, which is really sad. But if we can get a handle on them trying to go to a complete grading system, which is where they want to go. In fact, now, even after this session, there was a bill that passed that says 10% of your overall grade is based on your absenteeism. That's crazy too. That should have nothing to do with how smart you are or what you're doing with your scholarly learning that you've been doing in the schools. So um, I would say that that's a scary road to go down, and it's already been started. So I tried to put a stop to it the best that I could.
Well, so you used words like resilience, and I've got a bit of the list just here in my screenshots that say problem solving or ability to negotiate conflict, cooperation, the ability to work collaboratively, self management or emotional management regulation, et cetera. Right? All of these things sound great to your average person, right? Um, but what I've found is that a lot of times what we think those things mean, something like resilience, it's not what it means.
Yep, 100%. Totally agree with you.
Um, so when so let's just take an example of resilience. Okay, the majority of people think that resilience means your child is able to get through hard things. But that's just not what it means. Resilience now means that you're able to take on what someone else has decided that you need to accept. Oftentimes, what I would call a struggle session. Is that kind of where you're coming, or is that more of an extreme?
No, that's exactly where I'm coming from. And that's the other thing too, though, Carrie. Is, it can be so many different things, and who is to decide what those are? Because schooling in the past was so easy in the fact that we all knew that if you could read, that was good for society. If you could have good math and problem solving skills, it was good for society. But anything outside of that has gone well beyond what school should be doing. It's actually the role of parents. Parents should be deciding and doing that stuff, not schools. And the more and more we put that element on the schools, the more and more we expect it, just like any governmental program. And now you're getting businesses that are starting to expect schools to do this because they don't feel like parents are doing that in their life for their lives of their kids.
Right. I just saw something that said parents are not. And had it said if parents are not doing X, then schools need to, then I could even understand it. But the blanket statement was that parents solidly are not. And personally, I take offense at that. And I think a lot of people should. There's probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% of parents who aren't invested in the character development of their own children. But we're now saying these programs oftentimes evaluated, like you had people, you had experts, and then they have quote unquote experts. But a lot of times the experts, we just found this out in Castle, the experts evaluating their program work for them.
Yep, that's exactly right. There's a conflict of interest there.
So one of the things that I found interesting was that you said teachers are coming to you and they're saying we can't take more on this, but so many of them won't speak up. How come?
Well, I think it's quite sad because the vast majority of our teachers are such good, kind-hearted people. They want to do what's right. They love students. They love their jobs. I mean, you have to if you're going to go deal with all of the behavioral problems that we see now in schools with kids. And it's not an easy job to do. And because of that, I think they really feel like they have to lean on their administrators and other teachers as it's almost like their family unit for their job. And they're giving their marching orders from the top. And to go against that could mean their lives could become a living hell for them in their workforce. And I don't think any of them want to do that. They just want to teach kids. And so anything outside of that scope, most teachers just don't want to cause an uproar, or they don't want to be in the limelight. And I would say this with most people. This is why most people don't get involved in politics in general, is they don't want to have to put themselves out there. They don't want to have the conflict in their lives. People typically don't like that. And teachers are no exception. And and so it's sad that they can be so easily mobilized from some of these teachers unions, for example, or some of the administrators who make the most pay and are most dependent on them doing what they say, and they just don't want to make their lives hard. And so I think it comes down to that is the main issue. Some do speak up, and they can be punished for it. I mean, I had a teacher out here in Davis County in Syracuse who just felt like with these ICE protests recently that they had gone way too far. And he's like, well, why don't we do something that's a pro protest for ICE? And he was completely ridiculed and called racist and all these other things because he's like, wait, well, my side doesn't have an opinion, and you don't think kids should see the other side of this too? And that's because of where we're at, and that is why teachers don't want to speak up. They don't want to deal with that. So it's just a tough place to be for them.
Well, speaking of a tough place, Trevor, it's a tough place for you too. Or I don't know if you prefer Representative Lee, but it's a tough place for you too. I mean, you have a young family. You're a young guy yourself, and you get a lot of attacks. What makes you invested in? I'm asking this question because yesterday was caucus, and I noticed one of the things I noticed at caucus is it's a lot of elderly people, which I appreciate, but how do we get the moms and the dads and also the young adults involved? And what made you decide to get involved?
Well, I never had intentions to get involved with politics. I got involved because of COVID. I was just furious and upset with these ridiculous mask mandates, vaccine mandates, government picking winners and losers, and I just felt like there was an erosion of our freedom. So I got involved when I felt like it was becoming personal to me and watching friends and family lose their livelihoods over this. Uh, Sometimes that's just what it takes to get people involved. I mean, turnout is just so bad in our elections, and it's not until you feel like it affects you that you get involved, and that is the unfortunate reality of it is people tend to not care until it involves them. One of the things that I do, and this is why I seem to get a lot of attention, is I have a very young family. I have 4 kids under 4. I also have a 17-year-old, and so we're in all stages of this life of parenthood and raising our family. The world is shifting extremely fast, and I just felt like there was a lot of legislators before I got in office who just were out of touch. Either they were older, they didn't understand technology, they didn't feel like the decisions they were making were going to have the consequences that they did. And so, I wanted to be a voice of change, something that was different than what you would typically get up on the Hill. And, I still wanted to be effective. I don't want to go after colleagues, and I want to, be respectful of everyone. But I will never stand down or back away from the principles that I believe in. And because of that, I get branded as a crazy right wing extremist with my viewpoints and not backing down. I can say stuff like, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, so then I'm called a homophobe, right? But that's a truth that I believe, and that people are allowed to believe that. And because I'm not afraid to say it, that's why they tend to come after me so much. Is I will say the things that are uncomfortable truths for most people, and they don't want to hear them. uh, I want my kids to grow up in a world where they have a lot of the great things that I had not that long ago. Just because I'm not that old, I still have a young family, and I am wanting to stop the shift, or I want to prevent the things that are bad from turning Utah blue, turning us like every other state that is having these issues. And I see policies that are proposed that are going to lead to that if we're not careful. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong either. But that tends to be a hard thing for a lot of politicians to admit, for example, that the Utah Compact was a disaster for our state. So I'm going to get ridiculed heavily for saying stuff like that. But it has. The numbers are overwhelming in our favor, and the data that it was a bad thing for our state when we did that. Good intentions, but the consequences have been absolutely horrible. Excuse me. So I would say that things like that is why I get ridiculed for for what I do. And you'll hear this a lot, but if people can say, if you just get to know Representative Lee, um, who he is,
Gosh.
what he believes in, and that is uh, I want to make sure that I'm accessible, and I do. And I take all the phone calls. I spend all the late nights. I spend all the weekends being able to get a hold of, having people call me, ask me the questions, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so a lot of times, a lot of the criticism of me can actually get put to the side, or there can be mutual respect of my opinions if they'll just reach out and talk. If we can have that civil dialogue and those conversations. Now, I will say this: if you're going to reach out and start off the conversation by like "f you," this, that, like you're about, like that's probably not the best way to start if you want to get to know me.
Right?
But if you want to have that conversation, I'm always willing and able. And so I tell everyone, let's talk, and you can understand my viewpoints. You can understand like why the media just said this about what I was saying. You can see why I proposed this policy, and in the vast majority of cases, we can walk away with it most of the time agreeing on what I was doing instead of what the media narrative is trying to say with what I've been pushing.
Okay, so it seems to me that a lot of our politicians, I mean, I've met a lot, and it seems to me that they're generally good people. There are definitely people who are arrogant, but and I really think that humility is the issue. It's a matter of I know better, especially if you're just a plain old normal rural person. Um, there's kind of an elitism. Do you feel that at the Hill or no?
Um, with some, yes, but even with that type of mentality, with some people, they
Yeah.
still truly do, in a lot of cases, have the best intentions.
Okay. You're a little bit, or there's something scratchy with your side of the thing. And the reason that I want to know this is because I'm trying to get to the root of what makes young people, I'm going to say people under 30, what makes them simply not interested. And I know you said that it doesn't affect them until it hits them, but I was talking to some students the other day and somebody had said, I'd rather die than ever be involved, than ever care about politics at all because it's just evil people. And I said, you know what? I totally understand politics at that level where you're going, hopefully you'll be back on. I totally understand politics at that level where you're saying these people up here that are outside of my life, I have nothing to do with. Here we come, bringing back in. Um, there you go. So what I was saying is, I totally understand how there's people up here that you'll never reach, but politics matter even at that local level, right? So politics become this in your local everyday level, it becomes something like you're going to be forced to call Stanley Susan. And if that doesn't bother you because we live in nice culture, if that doesn't bother you, then what about the fact that your girlfriend or your daughter might walk into the bathroom and Stanley might follow her? Like, at what point do you want to stop that? And even then, like, I'll see this little spark in their eyes and that, like, I don't want that, but they still don't show up. What can we do to get this new generation to show up? Are you still there? You were there. I'm going to pull up and see if we've got any more here. I'm going to look at the notes and see what I've got going on here. Okay. In 2024, Trump won all 10 states with the lowest percentage of college grads. West Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky. He lost all 10 states with the highest percentage of college grads. No school gets to take over my rights as a parent. Agreed. I'm still waiting to see if he's coming back. So in 2024, Trump won all the states with the lowest percentage of college grads. West Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky. So I'm wondering, Audrey, if your question or if your statement is that higher educated people tend to vote, and if you think that that's a good thing. Higher educated people tend to vote for Democrats. Still waiting to see if he's coming on. I think I just heard him come back in. Are you back? Okay, great.
Sorry, I had that like button sound good on my end. It's really bad.
It's your sound. We'll try one more time. So one of the notes says in 2024, Trump won all states with the lowest percentage of college grads, and I see a thumbs up. West Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas. He lost all 10 states with the highest. Do you think that our push to get all of these kids into higher ed, and I've got a senior this year, but to get all of our kids into higher ed is turning them blue? Do you think there is a fundamental difference between the people who don't go to college? I would not say are less intelligent, but is that what's going on here?
So I totally agree with you, and I think that that's one of the routes that they want to go. Is they would like to
I'm so
have everyone
sorry. You sound huh. Let's we can stop this and try again, I guess. Your sound is awful though. Um
same.
everybody oh go ahead. Wait. What'd you say? Thanks so much. We may try to jump on again if he can get better sound.